Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring some products from Trinity Stamps. These were actually released last summer, but I never got to play with them. So the See You Soon is the Little Mermaid, then the underwater scene, the stencils. I showed you these little porpoises, the little dolphins, but I didn't end up using them. And I also didn't end up putting a sentiment on it. These are full front shaker panels that you can use to make your whole card a shaker, which is what we're going to be doing today. And I have had these set aside to play with for a really long time and just haven't had time to kind of sneak them in. But now we're heading into summer. It's a good time for like summer fun beach cards. You're probably going to see a lot of those from me. But I love the little mermaid. She's adorable. But I was really drawn to the underwater scene. Like, how many different ways can you use that underwater scene, right? So you can stamp the fish in it and like just use it as is, or you can just stamp the the coral, the vegetation in the little beach underneath the water. So one thing to know about this is anytime you have a stamp where like it's in kind of a U shape and you plan on using the die, it doesn't matter if you're not using the die, but if you plan on using the die, which I do here, make sure you get your magnet out of the way. You're going to see that I obviously did not do that. But in order to make sure that they will line up with the die, what I like to do is I lay the die down as soon as I remember, like you have to completely take the magnet off, Kelly, metal to magnet. It's you know what I'm saying. So I'm going to lay the die down and then I'm going to lay my stamp right over top of it so that I know that it's going to fit into the die when I stamp it. When you have something that is a U shape, it can be a little bit kind of tricky to stamp in the same position every single time. And so if you're using the die, obviously you need it to stamp how it was intended to be stamped. And so just laying the die down, I tape mine in place just to make sure that I'm not going to move it. And then picking up the stamp ensures that I am going to be able to die cut it with no problem. So I'm inking this up. I'm using Hero Arts Intense Black ink. It's safe for alcohol markers. That's what I'm going to be doing for the coloring portion with the mermaid and with the underwater scene. And then we're going to be doing some ink blending as well, because this is a full scene shaker card. And I love it because it combines, like most of the time with an interactive element, it gets very challenging to kind of do a full scene. It's much easier to do, I don't know how I would describe it, like a more stylistic kind of card. Here what I am doing is this stamp is 6x6, so it's going to give you, like if you wanted to do a 5.5 by 5.5, you would be able to do that. I want mine to fit into this shaker pocket, so I just took an A2 size piece of cardstock and laid it down over my stamped background, and then I just traced it with a pencil, so that way I know where I need to color up to, and I also know what is actually going to be seen in my card when I cut it down. For the background, I'm doing some ink blending. You guys know these blending buddies are my absolute favorite. Speaking of the blending buddies, let's talk about the sale. So Trinity Stamps does have a Memorial Day sale going on now. It will be linked below. There is a code that you need to use. Again, you'll find that below. It's 25% off. They do a freebie at, I believe, $40 and free shipping at $99. So, but there's so much stuff in this Memorial Day sale category. My little mermaid and her die are in there. A lot of the shaker bits that I used are also in there, but most importantly, these little blending buddies are in there, and you know that these guys are my favorite. Now, I didn't even wait for a sale to buy mine. Like, once I realized how much I love them, I just stacked up on them, and I still have a box of some that I haven't used yet. And when I come across a color that I need one for, I just start it. Here, I wanted to show you that, like, most of the time to get good blending or get good coverage, you have to have a seasoned foam or brush. Here, like you can see how dark it goes on, and that was a brand new one. I did not have one for Uncharted Mariner yet. So yeah, they're really, really great. Could not recommend them enough. Here I am using the stencil. I can't remember what this one's called, but it'll be linked below. But basically it's just a bunch of stencils to create an underwater scene, kind of no matter what size card you're making. And I think that's really fun because if you're a person who makes multiple size cards, it gives you a lot of different opportunities. So I did my inking from lightest to darkest, because the ocean's going to be darker at the bottom, it gets more sunlight at the top. And so I'm doing the same thing, and I am going to speed this up. I'm doing the same thing, but over the rays stencil. And I'm going to do them because I have a problem. I'm going to do them twice. And then I'm going to slightly shift my stencil because these are some pretty large rays, right? And I don't have a very large card. I'm doing an A2 size card. So after I do my blending from lightest to darkest, darkest to lightest, then I'm going to go ahead and remove the stencil so that you can see. And I did slow it back down so you can see like there's the rays. But in order to create a look of more rays and have the pattern be not as large, I'm just going to shift it slightly. So I still want that lightest portion to show through, and I still want to cover up the majority of like what's already been inked, but I did give myself these little slivers to kind of create more interesting rays. And then of course, because I can't leave anything well enough alone, we're going to do even more to the background, because when I do scene cards, and this isn't true for everybody, and that's cool, because we're all our own individual art journeys. We've talked about this. But this is like, this card was just super enjoyable for me to make. So I did the stenciling on the background. I did use distress inks. They are reactive with water. So I'm going to do some create what looks like little bubbles with just some clean water spatter. And then because I do love the shine, I am also going to spatter on some Perfect Pearls in the color Perfect Pearl. I just mix it with a little bit of water. They do bind with water. So once I mix that in and flick it on, it's not going to be going anywhere. And so it will create the look of kind of like water bubbles that are both shiny and water bubbles that are flat. And then we're going to move on to the coloring. So anyway, back to what I was talking about with the sale. That runs through tomorrow, and there's lots of really great stuff in it. I did update this morning. I did update my craft sales page. So if you would like to check that out, I always appreciate anytime you guys take your time, because it is precious, to shop through my links. And yeah, so that's that. And I'll update it again tomorrow if the jelly bean lets me. So when I was making this card, I was kind of thinking like of my goddaughter. She is a bit like on the fairer side. Her hair is probably a bit redder than what I chose, but I really wanted there to be some contrast between this ocean and my mermaid. Like I wanted her to be able to stand out. Also with the coral, you'll see when we get to coloring that, like I chose lots of bright colors. And my goddaughter is very fair skinned, and she has definitely more reddish hair. But I do think if you went the other way, like I went very light here, but if you went the other way in contrast and did a darker skin tone, a darker hair color, that contrast would also be really pretty. Like my daughter is mixed. She takes after her father. God, my mother-in-law sent us a picture today in our text messages, and it was my husband, I don't know, probably when he was like maybe 10 or 12, and she's like, just in case you wondered what Jelly Bean was gonna look like when she got older, because she is her dad's twin. Like she had blue eyes until she was until she was past the age of 1. So I was like, what? Are these going to stick? Like, I was pretty shocked. But now they've changed. They're pretty hazel, but she does have the, darker curly hair like her dad, and definitely has his nose, his eye shape. Like, she looks a lot like him. And if you've watched my videos before, the one thing that she got from me was my sad, skinny little lips. Her father has big, beautiful lips. She has skinny little lips like her mommy. But anyway, so if you went that way, that would create a lot of contrast too, which would be really, really pretty. So for the coloring of the hair, basically the crown of your head is going to be a little bit darker. The pieces that kind of frame her face will be lighter. We leave that highlight in the round area to give her hair, like her head, some more dimension. And then where her hair is kind of tucked behind the little narwhal, or where it's kind of tucked behind her neck, like those are all going to be darker spots. Now you may notice on the left hand side, there was a dip in her hair, and I did put a little bit of darkness in there. That's just to create a little bit more dimension. So I did give her some kind of rosy cheeks here. If you find that the blush color that you chose is a little bit too much, you can always go back in with your lightest skin tone color and just kind of blend that out. I chose to do my narwhal in some cool grays. This is pretty much the only neutral element I have going on in my card. So even though he has these adorable little spots, I decided that I was just going to leave them white because there's so much other color, and it's an interactive shaker card. Like, there's just a lot going on that he's a nice place for the eye to rest. So I added shading from the top down to leave his belly a little bit on the lighter side. And then I am going to fade that into the same kind of blush color I used for her cheek, which is an R20. It's a very pale pink. And this is just to give him just a smidge of color. Just you can see how small that line is. And I'll blend that back out with the C1. Of course, we're going to like glitter him and stuff later. But that's what we did for now. For the tail, there is a design already drawn on her tail, which you could absolutely choose to color in that design. I chose to ignore it. That kind of sounds rude. Like, I'm not trying to be rude. I think the pattern's very pretty. But I wanted her to have more of a multicolored tail, and the black outline of itself, like you're still going to be able to see the pattern that's drawn there. So I wasn't stressing about that. I just wanted the color to be more interesting than just one color. Because again, she's the only thing breaking up that very like bluish teal background that we have, because our scene is all on the edges. So I just wanted there to be a little bit of color in the middle. So I'm going to use the same colors that you kind of already see in the card so that it doesn't look, what is the word disjointed. Like, it's going to look like everything goes together, but we're doing it in a way that still will get us that kind of color gradient. So I chose to do stippling instead of like just coloring it straight across. Stippling is just a series of dots, like little tiny polka dots, and that helps the colors kind of blend together. It also helps give the look of like scales when you're doing, something like a mermaid or maybe a dragon. What else would we use this for? Anything that, would be scaly. If you were coloring a snake, I would never be, because my husband is terribly afraid of them. So he would not, nope, he would not like that. Not at all. In fact, like, how when you send each other, like, I'm sure we're not the only married couples that send each other reels or, those type of things, like little videos. And I had stumbled across one that was a snake, and they like found it in their daughter's like toy basket. which would have absolutely just sent my husband out like crazy, out of control. He would have lost his mind. So it was funny, and I sent it to him. But then, like, the algorithms, right? So for probably like a good week and a half, it just kept sending me snake videos. And while you guys know from Kelly's Critter Cottage, I am not a huge fan of like insects, spiders, things like that. Reptiles don't really bother me. So that was fine, but it was very comical because then I just kept sending them to him. And he was like, "What kind of videos are you watching? Stop sending me these. I don't like it." um, so anyway, we worked all the way from the green to blue to purple to pink. We did her flower on top of her head with the purple, and then did her what like a little bandeau top is looks like what she's got there in the pink to kind of match her tail. And then she's done. We're gonna move on to the underwater scene. I cannot tell you how much I love this scene and how excited I was to color it. Like I said, I've been looking at it for like a year, like a solid year, just waiting for the opportunity to use it. Because I joined, like I started working with Trinity. I had used their stamps and stuff, but I wasn't making videos for them per se. Speaking of making videos, the last video I made, I'll try to remember to link it at the end, but it was like the sketchy florals with like the little pinstripe. We made 2 cards out of it. Anyway, that's all included in the sale too. So if you were like a big fan of that video, that's all on sale. Anyway, so she invited me to start making videos for her. I think last year, it was right after Father's Day, I think. So it was like midsummer. So they sent me kind of like the last like release or so, some items from those releases. But it was like too late to use them. So, yeah, I was very excited to be able to go back. I have other ideas. Like you saw those little dolphins. I have other ideas for those. So anywho, I colored the beach floor, and you could see like we're adding the shadows where the coral and things are kind of sitting on top of the sand and leaving some lighter areas in the middle open area. For the coral, I chose, like I told you before, really bright colors, but I chose to do bright oranges, bright pinks, because these are going to be colors that really are going to pop off of that teal. So a orange is blues. Why can't I think? Kelly, color wheel. What are they? Complementary. Orange is blue's complementary color. Pink is yellow green's complementary color, and teal is a yellow orange complementary color. So that's why you see those things kind of in the coral. That's why I chose those colors, because I knew they'd be really bright and they would pop off of each other. And it's a bright, fun, kind of swimmy kind of card. So for the corals, I just kind of stuck to adding the shading kind of on the bottom of each section. For these ones, I don't know what these are. I'm going to be honest with you. But do I have to know what they are to color them? Nah, not really. So I chose to do them the hot pink. There's another piece of coral that I did not color orange. I'm going to hit that one up for the pink as well. But these are very much tucked back. There's multiple layers of them. So we're just following those same guidelines of any point where 2 objects meet or where one object lays on top of the other. These are very clearly tucked back behind this vegetation. So it's going to be much darker at the base and then lighter in the areas where they separate. So then I'm going to move on to color this coral, and I did this the same way I did the oranges. I try very, very hard to work in visual triangles. So like you have those 3 elements of orange that are creating a triangle. Now, I only did 2 pinks, but you have to remember our girl is going to go in this scene and she also has some pink in her. So that will make my 3rd pink element. For the rest of the sea life, if you will, I chose to do a combination of 2 different greens. So a very bright yellow green that will match the leaves that we did on our mermaid's head, like her little head head decoration. These will match that as well. And then there's a couple of, again, I don't know what they're called, but do I need to know? Still, no. Still, the answer is no. But a couple more kind of like vegetation, plant life. That's the little round ones with kind of like the little feet. I'm going to color those yellow green as well, with the exception of, again, one, which I chose to do yellow. Now, that yellow one, there isn't really anything else in here that's yellow, but I chose to do kind of like the outcropping in purple, and yellow and purple are complementary colors. So even though you're not seeing a ton of bright yellow in it, it still works really nicely. For this other vegetation, because they're laying right on top of each other, this yellow green one and this one, I decided to switch up the greens I was using. These are a bit more of a true green, so they're a little bit darker in color, definitely much less yellow green, but they're still really bright. They're not, when you talk about Copic markers, like the front color or the front number talks about its level of brightness, or I'm sorry, the back number, the second number talks about like how light or dark it is, and the first one is how kind of bright it is. So even though I'm using a G29, that 9 is its darkness, so it's a dark color, but it's only a 2, so it's still very bright. Same thing with the G19 and then the G07. So the 7 is kind of middle of the road darkness, but it's a 0, so it's very bright, very kind of pure. So even though they are a little bit darker, they're still much brighter. So I colored those the same on both sides. And then for the little outcroppings, I did, we're going to do the little yellow bits right now. But I chose to do those purple because, again, I have that purple flower that I'm going to create my triangle with. So I have 2 of these outcroppings that'll be purple, and then the purple flower on top. So yeah, anyway, I was super, do you guys ever have that? Like where you're like, oh, I can't wait to use these. I actually bought, and it's what I plan to do after I do this voiceover, God willing, that my little jelly bean stays napping. Whether or not she will, only God knows. We just fingers crossed. You know what I'm saying? If you had young kids, you know how precious nap time is to try to get all your things done. But I had bought these stamps and dies specifically to make my sister's birthday card. And then I've been doing all of these other kind of makings that I have not yet made her birthday card. So I need to get cracking because we are celebrating her birthday tomorrow on Memorial Day. Which is a little bit, I don't know how I feel. I'm sure everybody, at least if you live in the US and you celebrate Memorial Day, like it's kind of a hit or miss, because the occasion in which brought about Memorial Day is, remembering those who lost their lives in war. And so, your veterans who passed. But then look, we all have cookouts. So it's like a little hit or miss. We ended up starting doing my sister's birthday on Memorial Day after my son was born, because their birthdays are only 2 days apart. And so he always had like the bigger party, and then her birthday kind of got bumped is really what happened. So we do her birthday on Memorial Day. Speaking of veterans and like the actual thing of Memorial Day, if you did not know, if you're not signed up for the newsletter, then you probably wouldn't know this. Colorado Craft Company actually has a BOGO sale going on right now. Buy one, get one free. And here what we're doing is I'm just trimming along those lines. I am making it just a smidge smaller than an A2 size card because I want to make sure for sure it's going to fit inside my pocket. But anyway, so they just sent out an email this morning, and I did update it on the craft page, but in case you don't make it over there, I just think it's super cool of them and want to acknowledge it. They are donating $1 for every stamp and die set sold to their local VFW, which I think is really awesome. So I will definitely have to go over there and do some shopping, not just for the BOGO sale, but also because I know that they're gonna, spread that to the veterans and give back to them. So let's talk about this die cutting. So I trimmed it down first because I thought it would be a nightmare to have to cut it after it was already cut. That bottom piece does come out, but I'm just going to fit it back in like a puzzle piece to complete my scene. Alternatively, you could you could mask the bottom sand portion when you're doing your inking, and you could do that brown and then die cut it and then just put it over top. So once I got my mermaid in place, I just kind of held her there with my hand. This is not the most technical application of glue, but I wanted to make sure that she wasn't going to move and you were going to be able to see all of her around or behind the C setting, if you will. And then if you watch my channel, this is not news to you. I cannot let that white border be. I just can't. I have to blend in my die cuts into my scene. So I chose several different blue-green colors to do that. I did try my very best to follow along with the different colors of the stripes so that it would blend in as well as possible. And then there's no way for me to tell you, like, yes, I used BG45 and I used BG11 and I used BG07. Like, did I use all those colors? Yes. But you may not, because you have to match that ink blending. So when you're looking at it, I find the most helpful thing is the actually Sandy Allnock's hex chart is the best, because then I can like kind of move that chart around my card if I don't know, like if I can't come up with the color right off. Now I use my Copics pretty regularly, so most of the time I can eyeball a color and know that I'm pretty close with the marker, but of course do test it. And sometimes in order to get a color, you have to layer other colors over top to get that kind of perfect shade. And it really, as long as it's close, like as long as it's close and it's not a bright white, you're doing better than you were before. So don't sweat it. So because the shaker pouch fits over the whole card, I am being a little bit more generous with my glue than maybe I normally would, because I want to make sure that that's not going to come up at all. And my little, like, there's no risk my shaker bits are going to get stuck behind it, especially since I am using some confetti, which is like flat discs. So I lined up the stamp at the top of the card and then just kind of worked my way back down to the base. And then to fit in the puzzle piece portion of the beach, I actually put the glue on my card front. I just found that to be a lot easier to make sure that I was going to be able to get it into all of the nooks and crannies. And then I just lined that up and pushed that right into place. I don't think it's terribly noticeable, but if it bothers you, like I said, you can always die cut your image and then color the brown underneath it separately on your card front. And then, of course, I'm going to go back in and blend in all of this, but I will spare you the details on that because it's the same exact thing you've already watched. The key thing that you have to remember when doing a full front shaker card is you're not going to be able to go back in and change anything. So all of your detail work, everything has to be done, because once you put the pouch on, the shaker pouch on, it's sealed. Like, that's it. You're not going to be able to get in there and make any changes to your card. So that part is really hard for me. I have to mess around with it and look at it and be sure I'm sure. So I did my glitters, I did my white gel pen, I was sure. I've picked out my little shaker bits here, and I have one of the panels. Now the panel does come with a clear film on it. The easiest way to get that film off is to just pick whatever low tack tape you have. I use pixie tape. Just stick it to the film and it'll peel right off. So in order to seal it, you do need to put adhesive on it. I am using Trinity's Rip and Stick tape for that. And I'm just going along. You want to put the adhesive only on the flap portion. And you just get all four sides. These, I think we did one of these once before we did a full shaker, but I don't believe it was like a full scene card like this one. If you don't love the shaker, then you absolutely could leave this part off and you'd still have a beautiful scene card. No doubt about that. I'm going to remove 3 of the sides, not the 4th one. I'm going to leave the top open for putting my shaker bits in. So then I'm going to lay that flat. I'm going to lay my card inside face down. And then from there, I can start folding up those little flaps to adhere the shaker pouch to my card front. And then I do like to reinforce mine with a bone folder. I just kind of run it over the tape to make sure everything is stuck really well. And then I'm just going to make my way doing each side and, just reinforcing that fold with the bone folder. And you leave that top one open until you're done. And you can see it gives you quite a bit of room to put whatever you would like in there. I chose a couple of different ones, mostly, on the blue and like clear side. So I used let me look, it's Snorkel. The confetti is Snorkel. I love it. It's like a bluish purple kind of confetti. I also used Crystal Ball Dewdrops. I used Silver Twinkle Rhinestones. These, I've used these a bunch for shaker bits. Razzleberry Bubbles, because they're like iridescent. Anyway, those are on sale too. And then also the Reflecting Sky. Then once you're happy with everything that you have filled in there, you remove the last strip off your adhesive and then fold it over and you have a full front shaker card. I chose not to do the sentiments. There was one in there that I really liked that was like squishy hugs and I thought would be really cute with the narwhal. But ultimately at the end of the day, I didn't want to cover any of it up. So I'll just put the sentiment on the inside. But that's it. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I always appreciate your time. I hope you learned a little something and enjoyed a little bit of story time, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.